What's up, everyone, and welcome to Be Sacred Space, your place for endless growth and possibilities. I am the beautiful and amazing creator of this space. My name is Bianca, but you can call me B, and I'm here to help you master yourself and your reality. So if that's something that you can vibe with, please make sure that you like, comment, and subscribe. I would greatly appreciate it because it would help this information get out to all of the right people. Alrighty, guys, let's get into the video. Now, this is a very special topic for me because I feel like this video is one of the most important works that I will do. This topic hits very close to home, and it is a pleasure to present to you all the Empower Your Wellbeing, Nurture Your Emotional Self-Care series. I want to give a clear trigger warning since we're going to be talking about emotional and mental health, and I have to share my experience with you all, and it's not all pretty. So if you're triggered by talks of depression, self-harm, suicide, I highly recommend that you step away until you feel like you're ready to watch this video. I am sharing my stories in hopes that I can get some inspiration, and I want to show you guys that it can and it does get better. I'm going to give you methods I use to overcome my experience of depression, self-harm, and suicidal tendencies. And now I am living a life 7 years and counting of becoming emotional free and taking back control of my life. So, if you stuck around, I'm going to give you a little run through about my past. If you haven't caught any of my older videos, I have mentioned probably a few times that I have dealt with 14 years of depression, anxiety. I was diagnosed with bipolar disorder. I experienced substance abuse. I was sexually abused as a child. I self-harmed since I was 12 years old, and I just lived a very reckless life. My mental and emotional health was in a very bad state. I mean, I spent a few trips in the mental hospital. I was suicidal, and I was just suffering from mental and emotional turmoil. I was from what I was going through. The thing is I had no one really to talk to. I was never taught how to properly cope and deal with what I was experiencing and feeling. I often felt I was a burden to those around me. And unfortunately, my behaviors and actions did become a burden to those around me. But even though they were deemed as a burden, they were my cries for help, from relief from the internal suffering I was going through. It's sad, yet even though mental health awareness is gaining more awareness, it is still a very taboo topic. For me, I felt like I had no real support in my life. And even when I was seeing a professional at a young age, I could tell that they could really care less about my experience and myself. It made me feel more closed off. And with that, the suffering continued. Now, I was on many different types of psychiatric drugs like Zymbalta, Zoloft, and some others. And yes, they did help to a degree, but they also came with some not so good side effects. I was still never able to stop my depression and anxiety and my suicidal thoughts. Honestly, I thought I would be on antidepressants for the rest of my life, or I thought my life would end by 25 due to the thoughts that told me I was better off dead, or the substances I was abusing. And also, I just lived a very, very reckless life, and I put myself in positions where death could have been a possibility. But here I am, 7 years later, free of depression, anxiety, bipolar. I no longer self-harm or abuse substances. I haven't been on psych drugs since, and I'm not saying that you shouldn't take them at all. All I want to say is that if you don't want to be dependent on psychiatric drugs, you don't have to be. And I am living proof of this. This is the happiest I've been in my whole life. And even when bad things happen in my life and it rocks me, I know I can get through it. It may suck at first. I may get sad, scared, feel uncertain or anxious, but I always practice emotional self-care and take times to get right with myself. This has kept me from falling into depression. It has reduced my anxiety a ton, and it has helped me gain control of my life and create a life of purpose, meaning, and joy. So now I'm here to help educate and teach you how to take control of your emotional and mental health and gain a sense of freedom and take back control of your life so that you may experience the desired life you want to experience here on planet Earth. And who wouldn't want the chance to be able to experience emotional freedom? So, If you are still interested in how to master and nurture your emotional self, then let's get into it. First, please like this video as it would really help this information get to the right people who could really benefit from these empowering bits of wisdom. Now, let us officially move on to the topic of this video, which is all about how we care and nurture for the emotional aspect of ourselves. So, what are emotions? Emotions is a complex experience of consciousness, bodily sensations, and behavior that reflects personal significance of a thing, an event, or a state of affairs. Emotions are responses to our environment and experiences. It's important to note that when we are talking about the emotional aspect of ourself, we are also talking about the mental self as well. The mental self and the emotional self are closely linked together and influence each other. By mastering our emotions and our mental self, we become sovereign rulers of ourselves. We are then put in a position of real power and have the ability to overcome any challenges and circumstances and create a desired outcome. That's why it's vital to not only cultivate a healthy mental self-care practice, but an equally balanced emotional self-care practice as well. Some other benefits of taking care of our emotional self is that we are able to reduce our stress levels, anxiety, depression. We improve our empathy and compassion for ourselves and others, leaving us feeling happier and capable of coping with our experiences in healthy ways. But when we don't prioritize our emotional health, we can fall victim to unfavorable circumstances and experiences, such as increased levels of stress, anger issues, decline in mental health, substance abuse, self-harm, victim mentality, or bully mentality. And oftentimes, those who don't have a balanced emotional health are easily triggered, aggressive, and or passive aggressive, have terrible boundaries, are easily manipulated and abused, and have a hard time speaking up for themselves. Poor emotional health usually stems from childhood experiences as well as experiences that we have throughout our lives. This can result in chronic guilt and shame, anxiety, and fear. I mean, let's be honest, being human can really suck at times. And with the amount of stress and pressure that the average individual faces, it's no wonder our emotional health is on a decline. If we do not take the time to nurture and strengthen our emotional self, then this can lead to excessive anger, apathy, numbness, and low self-esteem issues. This is a very dangerous place to find yourself in and try to get yourself out of. Trust me, I've experienced most of these horrible effects of poor emotional health for a good part of my life, and it's not always easy to get out and stay out of. Because when you are at that point, it almost feels damn near hopeless. And when you lose hope and belief in yourself, it's like suffering in a horrible nightmare that never ends. Now, if you have had the pleasure to never experience the above, then count yourself lucky because it is not a place to brag about. And to survive it doesn't always look the prettiest. The best way to avoid falling into these states of being is preventative maintenance. Now, if you are experiencing any of these negative effects, then it makes no difference either way. This information can be used in both cases. The most important thing to remember is to never give up and to believe that you are powerful and capable of experiencing happiness, peace, and the life you desire. But before we move on to the next steps on how to nurture our emotional self, let's talk about some signs of good emotional health, which can look like having strong boundaries, having a strong sense of self-worth, being in control of one's emotions and not easily triggered. One is able to experience joy and pleasure in life and able to handle unfavorable circumstances in healthy ways. The individual is able to take responsibility for all aspects of themselves and are able to articulate their feelings and thoughts. Someone with a good emotional health knows that in order to overcome difficult emotions, one must be able to allow the emotions to show up without trying to suppress them and find healthy outlets to process these emotions. So, how do we get to this point? To the point of emotional maturity and the ability to master our emotions? Well, an individual must first develop their emotional intelligence. Emotional intelligence is our ability to perceive, understand, and manage one's emotions as well as others. We develop our emotional intelligence by learning to recognize our emotions, being able to regulate and process our emotions as they come up. We are able to understand others' emotions and are able to respond to circumstances that present themselves. And I do want to apologize if you guys can hear that noise. It is like hailing out here. So I do apologize if that is coming through. Now, let's talk about how to strengthen our ability to recognize our emotions. And this starts simply with self-awareness. Y'all gonna get tired of me saying this, but self-awareness is always key when it comes to just about anything, but especially when you're trying to improve any area or aspect of your life. Self-awareness is simply being able to self-reflect and observe with honesty. I believe from my own understanding and interactions with others that most people would like to believe that they are self-aware. But according to Tasha Urich, who is an organizational psychologist, she says that only about 10 to 15% of people are actually self-aware. And I would agree that majority of people aren't as self-aware as they would like to believe, including myself. Though I consider myself a person who is pretty self-aware, I still uncover things about myself that I didn't quite see or understand before. Now, I will never come on here and pretend my life is perfect or that I'm perfect. I've done a lot of work on myself, but I recognize that it's a journey that is made up of different layers. So I don't want you to feel bad about how self-aware you are or not. Self-awareness, like well-being, personal development, self-love, enlightenment, and happiness, is all a life journey. How far you're willing to go to achieve these different aspects of your life is ultimately up to you. And I will have in my Instagram, hopefully by the time this video drops, a free self-awareness assessment worksheet. So make sure you check that out. If not, when this video drops, hopefully by the end of the weekend. But if you watch my last Nurture Your Mental Self video, which if you haven't checked that video, I have created an Empower Your Wellbeing series playlist where you can find all the self-care series videos in there. So make sure you go and check those out after you finish this video. But in the Nurturing Your Mental Self video, we discussed how we are always affecting our experiences based on our thoughts, beliefs, emotions, and actions. And when we aren't self-aware, we may not recognize certain beliefs and patterns, triggers, and our reactions and behaviors we hold. Being self-aware allows us to be open to information and be able to determine what's right and best for ourselves and others and the circumstances. Lastly, being self-aware allows us to be confident within ourselves and resilient because we are able to identify our strength and weakness and tap into our personal power. Without self-awareness, we have a greater potential of becoming self-defeating and toxic to ourselves and others. In terms of emotional health, being aware of our emotions and emotional states will help us gain greater clarity of ourselves, our triggers and pain points, as well as what motivates us and where we find our care. Remember, our care is a driving force in all of our actions. Being able to identify our emotions also helps us identify the emotions of others. When we are aware of our emotions and the emotions of others, we can then begin to understand them and use them as guiding posts. Our emotions aren't here to torment us, but to help guide us to what is right and fulfilling. Our emotions also serves as a way to protect us and to protect others. Hence why the average person will feel guilt and shame when they hurt another individual in some way. Without our emotions, we simply act like low conscious animals who basically live in a very primitive state of being. As human beings, we were blessed with the capacity to rise above primitive behaviors and act from a place of morality and higher thinking. And this can't be done if we aren't attuned to our emotions. In order to become aware of our emotions and understand why we feel the way that we do, we have to simply pay attention to our emotions as they arise. Whether we are feeling happy, upset, feeling guilt and shame, and every emotion in between, It is best that we try to put a name to these emotions that we are feeling. Like sometimes when we are feeling anger, there is actually an underlying feeling behind the anger, such as feelings of betrayal, feeling abandoned or misunderstood, or whatever the emotion we may be feeling underneath the anger. Being able to identify the emotion gives us a vantage point to be able to get to the core of the emotion and transmute them if need be. Next, we need to identify the external or internal triggers to the emotion or emotions that we are experiencing. I will be doing a separate video on how to identify our emotional triggers following this video. By getting to the core of our emotions and being able to identify the triggers, this not only helps us strengthen our self-awareness, but it puts us in a place of power to change our emotions and emotional states to a more preferable one, if we so wish. We may not always be in control of the emotions that come up, but we can control what emotions we feel afterwards. This is beneficial for us, especially when we are experiencing emotions that are heavy for us, like when we are feeling depressed, stressed, or anxious. Now, when we are experiencing a difficult emotion that we no longer wish to experience at the moment, we will need to first regulate ourselves and our nervous system, because when we are in the middle of a difficult emotion like despair, fear, or shame, it can be very difficult to break free from. By regulating ourselves and becoming grounded within ourselves, we can then create and change our emotions according to what we want to experience. Have you ever experienced anxiety and then just tried not to feel anxiety? It doesn't really work well. Oftentimes, we need to calm our nervous system, get out of our minds and emotions, and get back into our body and into the present moment. That's why it's important to have some type of regulating and grounding practices. Regulating and grounding, which these two words often get tossed together at times, can look different for everyone. Here are some different practices to help you regulate your emotions and nervous system. There is mindful meditations, breath work, which in the Nurture Your Mental Self video, I showed you guys how to do the alternate nostril breathing technique. Tapping is another way to help regulate your nervous system and emotions. Walking, going out and connecting with nature. There are different techniques such as cognitive behavior technique or CBT, and progressive muscle relaxation or PMR, which PMR helps release physical tension, reduces anxiety, and promotes relaxation by signaling to our nervous system that it is safe for us to calm down. One can also journal or have a support system that they can talk to and lean on. I mean, there are so many other practices as well that you can utilize and incorporate to regulate your nervous system and emotions. I always recommend having a few different regulating practices. That way you can rotate them in order that which I always recommend having a few different regulating practices that you can rotate in order to best serve your needs. I also recommend having different techniques for when you have time to be with your emotions and thoughts, as well as when you don't have the luxury and need a quick relief. Breath work is really good in this instance, as well as tapping, which can be modified for when you are out and about. If you're interested in learning more about EFT tapping, make sure you check out my What is EFT video. I do have another tapping video that I will be doing as well, that will be for emotional wellness, which I will include how to tap discreetly in that video. Hopefully I can remember. But by being able to regulate our emotions, we are able to balance them out so that we aren't ruled by them. And it helps us respond from a place of balance and right thinking. The next way to improve and strengthen our emotional intelligence is through empathy, which is developing a deeper understanding of ourselves and others' emotions, perspective, and experiences, as well as enhancing our ability to connect with and respond to our feelings as well as the feelings of others with compassion and understanding. We develop and strengthen our empathy through actively listening to others, being able to put ourselves in others' shoes, and in strengthening our nonverbal communication and validating others' emotions as well as our own. Empathy is a vital skill we must have in order to improve our relationships with others, and most importantly, improve our relationships with ourselves. Lastly, the way we improve our emotional intelligence is through our social skills and how we respond to others, especially when we are triggered emotionally. By being able to regulate our emotions and effectively communicate with others, we are able to navigate through social interactions, expressing ourselves clearly and influencing others in healthy ways. This improves our ability to resolve conflicts and improve our decision making. Emotional intelligence is a skill, and it's important to practice and cultivate all of these skills I mentioned through a practice of self awareness, self reflection, receiving feedback, and ongoing learning. Now, let's continue to discuss more ways on how to improve our emotional self and well being. And there are three self defeating emotions that keep us in a state of poor emotional health. And these three are guilt, shame, and fear. Now, before we go through each individual emotion, I want to say that these emotions do serve a purpose. The only problem is when they become self defeating. I highly recommend Dr. Peter Bregan's book, Guilt, Shame, Anxiety, for a more in depth explanation of these emotions and how they can negatively impact our lives. But for now, let's break down guilt. It emerges when individuals believe they have transgressed their moral or ethical standards, resulting in feelings of remorse, regret, and self blame for perceived harm. Understanding the distinction between healthy and unhealthy guilt is crucial. Healthy guilt acts as a moral guidepost, motivating accountability, amends, and learning, fostering empathy and ethical conduct. Conversely, unhealthy guilt tends towards excessiveness, irrationality, and persistence, fostering self criticism, low self esteem, and emotional distress, hindering growth and contributing to anxiety and depression. Effectively managing guilt requires one to recognize and own their responsibilities for their actions, learning from past mistakes and making amends, and challenging negative self talk. This process involves practicing self compassion, seeking support from trusted sources, and viewing the experience as a catalyst for personal growth and positive change. Striking a balance between acknowledging one's wrongdoing, accepting accountability, and fostering self forgiveness is central to successful guilt management. Shame encompasses feelings of inadequacies, feeling unworthiness, and a profound sense of being flawed or defective. Differing from guilt by focusing on one's entire self rather than a specific action. Healthy guilt as an indicator that the action or behaviors are incongruent with personal values, prompting one for self reflection, accountability, and a drive for growth. In contrast, toxic shame is pervasive, intense, and harmful, fostering chronic feelings of unworthiness that undermine self esteem and hinders personal development. Managing shame involves acknowledging and challenging negative self beliefs and critical thoughts, reframing distorted beliefs about worth and identity, and practicing self compassion and accepting, and seeking validation and support from trusted sources, and engaging in activities that bolster self esteem and positive self perception. Addressing underlying issues contributing to shame, such as past traumas or internalized criticism, is key alongside cultivating resilience, self awareness, and growth. Effective shame management entails confronting shame inducing beliefs and emotions and nurturing self compassion and worth and fostering a healthy self identity and self esteem. Now, fear. Fear is a primal human emotion and it arises in response to perceived threats or potential harm, serving as a protective mechanism to navigate risky situations. Healthy fear promotes appropriate caution, alertness, and preparedness for protective actions without overwhelming distress or impairment. In contrast, unhealthy fear manifests as excessive reactions leading to heightened anxiety, avoidance behaviors, and maladaptive coping mechanisms that can hinder daily functioning and diminish the quality of life. Managing fear entails identifying triggers, challenging negative thoughts, and gradually exposing one to fear stimuli. Practicing relaxation techniques and seeking support and developing adaptive coping strategies. Effective fear management involves distinguishing between rational and irrational fears and learning to navigate anxiety inducing situations and fostering resilience and confidence in managing fear responses. This process empowers the individual to confront one's fears and reduce the distress and enhance overall well-being and the quality of life for that person. Now, when we are talking about emotional health, processing emotions is a very crucial key that we need to have. Yet many of us lack the tools and guidance to navigate these aspects effectively. This also leads us to bottling up our emotions or avoiding them due to discomfort, fear, or burdening others, or just feeling overwhelmed. However, suppressing our emotions can result in emotional numbness, increased stress, and negative coping mechanisms, impacting our relationships and resilience. Acknowledging and validating emotions is essential for maintaining overall well-being. To process emotions effectively, we must start by being mindful and observe and labeling our feelings without judgments, seeking support from trusted individuals and professionals, express our emotions through healthy outlets like journaling or talking, and using coping mechanisms such as relaxation techniques or problem solving skills, practicing self-compassion, setting boundaries, and allowing time to gradually process our emotions. So, I will be talking more about this in future videos, so make sure you stay tuned to the upcoming videos that will follow this one next week. Let's delve into the significance of community and support when it comes to maintaining our emotional state. When we have a supportive community, we experience a sense of connection and belonging, which are fundamental to our well-being as social beings. Trusted relationships provide validation, encouragement, and strength to face challenges. Conversely, lack of support can lead to us feeling isolated, abandoned, emotionally disconnected, and it impacts our mental emotional health negatively. Recognizing the need for support and connection is crucial as it fosters feelings of safety, security, and love. No one is meant to navigate life's challenges alone, and having a supportive network plays a vital role in promoting resilience and emotional well-being. In today's digital age, resources like the internet offers opportunities to connect with like-minded individuals and access supportive communities. I'm excited to announce that I will be creating a community for those seeking a support network. So if you're interested, please comment support below. Ultimately, having support in our lives empowers us to conquer difficult emotions and experiences, leading to personal growth. Lastly, we're going to talk about personal power, and our personal power plays a pivotal role in fortifying our emotional health. It equips us with the tools and mindsets necessary to navigate life's complexity with resilience and self-assurance. This encompasses developing self-awareness to comprehend our emotions and triggers, mastering our emotional regulation for stress management, and setting healthy boundaries to safeguard our well-being. Moreover, personal power empowers us to assertively advocate for our needs, to seek support when needed, and to foster problem-solving skills and resilience to overcome setbacks effectively. Furthermore, personal power encompasses self-care practices, emotional intelligence development, and authenticity, all which significantly contributes to emotional well-being. Prioritizing our self-care and embracing our emotions with intelligence and compassion and living from a place of authenticity in alignment with our values guides us towards fostering emotional health, nurturing fulfilling relationships, and lead us to a more balanced and empowered life. In essence, nurturing our emotional self and cultivating personal power leads us to greater emotional well-being, fulfillment, and inner harmony. Understanding and embracing our emotions, coupled with effective coping strategies, empowers us to navigate life's challenges with ease and resilience. This journey paves the way for increased happiness, deeper connection, and enhanced overall well-being. As we conclude our discussion for today, it is evident that our emotional well-being is inherently inherently tied to our personal power. By nurturing our emotional selves and cultivating resilience, self-awareness, and assertiveness, we empower ourselves to navigate life's challenges with grace and confidence. Remember, embracing our emotions and seeking support when needed and practicing self-care are key components to maintaining emotional health. Let's continue to prioritize our well being, build supportive communities, and empower ourselves to lead fulfilling lives. Thank you for joining me in this conversation, and I look forward to continuing this journey towards emotional health together. Now, I will see you guys in the next video. Take care.